So welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today's webinar is focused on the GPSR, which has come into effect late December 2024. So it's a relatively new, compliance regulation. We'll be breaking down GPSR and what that means to brands, retailers, and manufacturers. It's an honor for us to be guest hosting Roberth from 24-hour AR, authorized representatives, and they've been spending a lot of time helping European brands around the world, manufacturers all over Asia as well, into entering and selling in the European market. So Roberth, I'll hand you could share why they need to understand and know GPSR.
All right. Thanks a lot for the introduction. Yeah, happy to be here, and we'll get straight to it. Well, I'll just share my screen. Hopefully you can all see this. I'm gonna open up the chat as well. As if you have any issues during the webinar, just let us know via the chat, so that we know that everything is visible and all that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so welcome to this joint webinar between 24-hour AR and HQTS. So today we'll be talking about GPSR, which is a game changer in many sense aspect for product compliance within the EU. This is me, Robert. I'm the co-founder and CEO of 24-hour AR. Having a long experience from product compliance within the EU, helping companies sell their products legally. And I'm also a trainer at the Swedish Standardization Institute for Machinery Safety. So working a lot within this field. And lately, the past few years, we're moving into consumer products a lot, meaning that we are helping companies to comply with the rules for GPSR, for instance. This is the agenda for today. What is the GPSR? Which products are affected? What is new compared to the GPSD, which is the old directive? So we'll talk about that a bit. What is a risk analysis? How do you actually conduct one? What is a responsible person? And what does the manufacturers need to do now to comply? And we'll wrap things up with a Q&A. So I think that we do have some questions already that you've sent in before the webinar. So we'll take those, but please feel free to add any questions to the chat, so we can at this point at the Q&A go through some of them and see what we can answer straight away and what we need to get back to you at a later stage or so to answer as well. Okay, so what is the GPSR? Well, what is new with the what is the new GPSR? So basically, we already have we had a general product safety directive before this, but the GPSR came into force on December 13th of 2024. It did replace the current General Product Safety Directive, and the aim is to guarantee safety of consumer goods sold through any sales channel, both offline and online. And which products does this apply to? Well, it applies to all products that is meant to consumers, or actually that will reasonably be used by consumer during its lifetime. This means that even if you have a product that is actually professional segment. For example, a professional line screwdriver. Well, it's you know, in the first sense, it's sold B2B, for instance, but a screwdriver will likely during the lifetime of the product end up in the hands of consumers. The screwdriver is brought home to use to do some home renovations or whatnot. So there are definitely this scenario. So it applies to those as well. It means that the product should be safe, risk should be mitigated, and there should be a responsible person in the EU. These are the high-level requirements that are added here. The GPSR is a catch-all regulation for all consumer products. So that's kind of the point here. And again, what products are affected? Well, we already touched on that, but first let's define what a consumer product is. Well, it's a product that is intended to be used for consumers and professional products, likely to be used by that still is likely to be used by consumers. It means that both CE-mark products and non-CE-mark products can fall under this classification, and therefore the GPSR would be relevant for that product. There are products that fall under, for instance, only EMC directive and ROSH, restriction of hazardous substances. Well, these two directives, the EMC directive and ROSH directive, does not have any specific safety requirements in those laws. So that's why we have the GPSR that will add those safety requirements to that product. There are some products that even if it's ends up in the hands of consumers, that are actually excluded. For instance, food, beverages, medicine, but also other kinds of products. So there are a specific section in the General Product Safety Regulation that lists these exemptions. So if a product that falls within the scope of the GPSR is placed on the market before the 30th of December, the GPSD applies. So the General Product Safety Directive applies, meaning that the products that are placed on the market before the date are not subject to the new requirements retroactively. But if a product is placed on the market after the 30th of December, the new rules apply. Okay, so what is new? Well, let's go into a bit of more detail here. First, for each product that is covered by the regulation, there has to be a responsible economic operator in the EU. This can be an EU-based manufacturer, an importer, or an authorized representative, or a fulfillment service provider. These are entrusted with tasks related to the compliance of the product. So you do have the opportunity, of course, if you are based in the EU as a manufacturer, you would automatically fulfill this requirement. But if not, you may need one of two things, basically the importer or authorized representative to cover this requirement. Second, there is a requirement to add or draw up relevant technical documentation. We'll come back to what that really means soon. There is enhancement of the rules of product recall. So there is stricter requirement for manufacturers to put these routines in place to be able to do these kind of recalls if there is ever such a scenario happening. For instance, you need to register complaints, you need to keep records of that, and also, of course, be prepared to act whenever there's a recall, either initiated by authorities or initiated by yourself, which is actually one of the ways these recalls can happen. A risk analysis needs to be conducted. This is new, so basically we have, before this came into play, we didn't really need to do any analysis of risk of products that fall only onto the General Product Safety Directive, but now we do. There needs to be an electronic way of contacting the responsible economic operator in the EU, meaning an email address, a specific landing page with a form or similar. This electronic way of contacting should not be the main landing page, www.company.com. It would rather be something like company.com/contact us or something like that. So it's really like straightforward, get into that way of contacting the manufacturer. Cybersecurity is added here. This is not, there are not much guidance on what they actually mean when they say cybersecurity needs to be taken into account, but we are definitely seeing in general in the EU a lot of requirements on cybersecurity that are added. Within a few years, we have something called Cyber Resilience Act, which will affect many products, for instance. But yeah, so it's one of those things that we need to consider, especially during the risk assessment of the product. Is the product connected? Then can any intrusions be affecting the safety of the product? Mental health aspect should also be included in the risk assessment. This is also something that is added. So it's not just physical harm, but it's also mental harm that needs to be considered. So that's the new things, and then let's go into a bit more detail on specific parts. What is a technical documentation? The GPSR says that there should be a technical documentation, which at least is the general description of the product and its characteristics, plus a risk analysis. So risk analysis is mentioned in the GPSR as a requirement. You can see that here. It says specifically, before placing a product on the market, manufacturers shall carry out an internal risk analysis. So that's where that comes from. The risk analysis may differ for different product depending on complexity of it. So it's definitely a bigger, a smaller task to do a risk analysis of this pen, which is a consumer product. It needs to be have a risk analysis compared to, a complex electronic unit. So definitely different different aspects to this. The way it works, due to the choice of words, basically also within the directive, is that if you do a risk analysis and you see that, well, there are no identified risks, you don't need to take any further action. But you do still need to do that, have that risk analysis in place. So you need to do a risk analysis, and then if you identify risks, you also do a risk estimation, a risk evaluation. And finally, if the risk is not acceptable, you would do a risk reduction. And we'll look at an example of that soon, where we can show specifically what could happen if you don't do a risk analysis and how it can be handled instead. The second thing on the technical documentation is the product description. It's mentioned to ensure that you can assess the safety of the product properly. So it's actually more or less the other way around. So you first would need to have a product description that sort of frames the product. This is the product that we're talking about, and then you do a risk analysis on that. So this is the requirement. So it's the same sentence. It's just that says here technical documentation containing at least general description of product is required. And again, the description may differ from different products depending on the complexity of it. So basically, pen, very simple electronic unit that maybe communicate with the product with the user, have a lot of interesting things happening under the hood. Well, then it may need more description and more information. Yeah, so next thing here is to look at an actual concrete example of the of what can happen with a product that is a consumer product and does not have a risk analysis. So this the following we're about to see is a recall that is published on the Swedish Consumer Agency website. It's a sunshare. The sunshare cut off the tip of a child's finger. So this is the one. You can actually find this recall online. And this is a share. This is what it says in the recall. So this company is recalling chairs in 4 different designs for children and adults. The construction is dangerous and can injure the person sitting on top of the chair, in the chair, and a child has had the top of the finger cut off after the chair collapsed. The chair lacks a safety lock, which means that the wooden rod that regulates the height can jump out of the recess in the frame and the chair accidentally falls up. The person sitting in a chair risks having their fingers cut, crushed, or pinched between a wooden part of the chair. So you can imagine, just by looking at the picture here, that this recess here is quite low, meaning that it's easily seen that leaning back too rapidly or whatever may cause this one to jump out, and then the entire chair falls up. So what could have been done? How could this accident, and of course a recall as well, be avoided with a proper risk assessment or risk analysis? Well, first of all, the problem when you don't have a structured risk analysis is that, well, if you don't know if the risk exists, you can't handle the risk. So that's the first kind of thing here. We need to know what kind of risks we actually have with this product. If a risk analysis or risk assessment had been conducted, the accident could have been avoided entirely, at least likely. So as a part of what you will get in terms of content from this, well, information and downloadables from this webinar is a template for risk analysis. And I'll show you an example of this specific scenario right now. And let's see if I can move this here. Okay, so this is This is a simple example of a risk analysis, a risk assessment of a consumer product. So we have this, we would add the company name here, the role of it, the product as such, maybe some part number, who would be the user of this, well, adults and children, and describing the product a bit. So it's a lightweight, portable, foldable chair designed for outdoor use. So these are all a bit of overhead that needs to be added here. If you do a risk analysis and you see that, well, this product is inherently safe. So for instance, you would look at this pen I mentioned before and see that, okay, this is easily understandable that there are no risks with this product. Then you would add that here. So basically you have a safety declaration. You say that, well, we've done a risk analysis and this product is considered inherently safe. No significant hazard exists under conditions described above. So basically based on this, the information here, we see no risks. And by saying something like this, maybe even removing this entirely, saying that, well, a risk analysis has been performed, that's it. So this could be your risk analysis for this specific product. In our case, we see instead that, well, it's more something like this. We've done a risk analysis, and for this product, the following risk has been identified, and then we refer to the table below. Yes, for readability, I'll move it to this page here. Okay, so in this example, we've listed two separate risks. So let's start with the first one here. So a risk analysis is done with all the phases of a product. So everything from after the production has been completed to the transportation of it, the unpacking of it, the usage of it, the scrapping of the product. And in this case, we've looked at two different parts of the life cycle: the unpacking and the usage of the product. And for the unpacking, we see that, well, the folding parts are narrow and form a scissor. So the exposed person would likely be mostly adults, figuring that it's mostly adults that would do actually the unpacking. We see that there is a risk in your scenario that the finger entrapment due to the folding mechanism, and we see pictures, so we refer to this section here. And then there is currently no existing measure for this. We have a severity and probability that adds to a resulting risk, medium risk. And then we introduce a risk reduction, sorry. In this case, we want to increase the space between the folding parts so it does not become a scissor. So that would be our risk mitigation. And then we might need to warn the user in the user instruction that, well, there is actually a pinching hazard still, but this is how you handle that specifically. And then finally, we see that, is this risk acceptable or not? Well, yes, in this case. So this is one part of the risk assessment, risk analysis. The second one is the usage. So we know that there's a specific risk that the foldwork is not solid enough and may cause the chair to collapse. So that is the actual hazard that we see. The exposed persons would, in this case, be children and adults. And the scenario would then be that the finger is entrapped, severed due to collapsing, the collapsing mechanism. And again, we refer to this picture here. We do have an existing measure, and that is the fold lock, but we see also that it's too weak. So given that, we would do a risk analysis, a risk assessment, sorry, where we say that, well, it's a high severity, it's a medium probability, and it's a high risk. It could even be a high. I actually would like to change this to high probability, because we see that it's quite easy to make this happen. But given this, we would have a high risk, and then we have two risk reductions. First, we would increase the space between the folding parts, the same thing as we did here, but we would also improve the locking mechanism so that it does not break. And given this, if we would introduce these two risk reductions, then we say that the risk is acceptable. So if the company forced to do the recall that placed this product on the market would have actually done this work before they placed it on the market, well, then they would have seen that they needed to do this. We would, well, they wouldn't need to recall the product, and the poor child would have his or her fingertips left. So it's kind of that kind of point with all this. Even if you see that this product could be, not specifically hazardous, you would do a risk analysis and see these kind of things. So yeah, that's that. In this document, you will also have instructions on how to use it. So it's step by step, more or less here. You would also have the table where you would determine if it's a high risk, medium risk, or low risk, depending on severity and probability. Yeah, and then finally, in the final section here, you would have a description of the method that we are using based on official sources targeting consumer product safety. Yeah, so that's that. Okay, moving forward. So that's the documentation section. Let's move into responsible person and what to do with that. What is a responsible person and how to comply? Well, the GPSR requires a responsible person in the EU. You have the option to have a manufacturer, you would have an importer, or an authorized representative. 24-hour AR acts as an authorized representative to help comply with that specific requirement. The AR has some things they need to do. So every AR must do a document verification. They need to provide you with legal use of the address. So basically, you need to be allowed to use the address on your product. They need to manage the files, store those for 10 years, and of course, cooperate with the market surveillance authorities. Because basically, the authorized representative acts as a liaison between the manufacturer outside of the EU and the market surveillance authorities within the EU. So it's really like that link between the different actors. What we do at 24-hour AR as aside, well, in addition to the parts that you need to do, is that we verify authenticity of certificates and reports. We address product risks and collaborate on solutions. We manage all the recall registrations and all that, and translate technical files, annual reviews. And all these things are all these things are within the pricing of the service that we provide. In addition, we would will guide you on the drafting of the declaration of conformity. We have a lot of templates for user manuals, risk assessment, declarations, and whatever. And we, in addition to that, we also issue an AR certificate that can be used to show compliance to this requirement that you've actually appointed an AR. We have a portal where you can get access and you have free access to masterclasses, guides, podcasts, white papers, etc. Of course, e-learning as well that are offered to our customer base. And we add all these things to help our customers comply with the legal requirements. We want to also help them avoid hassles with authorities and of course simplify market access. We do this within 24 hours up to 1 week after we've establishing the work together. We have compliance expertise within the team that will help you guide you to a compliant product, and of course high value with a competitive pricing. Yeah, and we have bonuses, support, access to range of free sources, and I guarantee you 50% refund if you don't deliver on our promises. We like to see ourselves as market access enablers rather than gatekeepers. So that's kind of the core of what we do. So not just provide an address, but also all these additional things that will help you, avoid hassles in customs, market surveillance, whatever, all these things. We have transparent pricing. So up to 20 products, there's a pricing of $1,650 annually, and up to 1,000 products, $3,850 annually. And of course, we can handle any number of products, but then we would quote that specifically. And then, of course, what is a product? When you see that it says 20 products, well, what is that? We have thousands of SKUs, but we only have 3 variants basically on these. The other things are more or less colors or sizes or similar things like that. And for us, when we count these, we say, well, a DUC, that's a product. A category is a product. So a DUC is a declaration of conformity. So several CE mark product would likely be counted as several products. Every category is a product. Well, then you see that clothing, for instance, may be one category. So that would be one product if there are no significant changes between the clothings. And a lot of things can be grouped together to reduce the number of products. So it really comes down to the technical files, more or less, where you can describe the product within with one technical file. That's kind of what we count as a product. So it's because of the way we work, we really review the technical files. So that's kind of why we need to separate between technical files and similar. Here's an example where you will see that one product is a sweater. It has different colors, prints, and sizes, still one product. 2 products would be 2 similar electronic devices, but where one has Wi-Fi, but the other one has not. So definitely different declarations for these, different rules that are laid on the one with Wi-Fi and the one without Wi-Fi. So that's kind of the differentiating thing here. We offer any HQTS members a 10% discount of first year of service, meaning that if you reach out to us and mention HQTS, then you will get this discount. Right. What does manufacturing need to do now? So that's kind of what we're here for, right? So some sort of guidance. What's next? First, we need to understand if the GPSR applies to your product. So review the what I've said today, of course, but definitely study the GPSR general process for regulations, see what it says. Then assess the technical documentation. Are all requirements covered? Well, we already said you need a risk assessment, you need general descriptions, but there are also other things mentioned, such as test reports, if needed. You would need the recall procedures, things like that as well. You need to ensure that there is a responsible person in the EU. So this, as I said before, you have the manufacturer, importer, or authorized representative that can be this responsible person. You will need to update labels with the EU responsible person and the electronic address. So the email, the landing page specifically for contacting you, these things. And finally, ensure there are routines in place to handle complaints, recalls, and keep registers of the same. Yeah. So closing in on the final few minutes of the webinar, supporting material. This is what you will get from HQTS after the webinar is over. The risk assessment template. There will be a cleaned out editable template for you. You will get this filled out template that it's filled out example, let's say, of the foldable share case study to illustrate what needs to be done, how it can be done, and the recording of this masterclass. So yeah, that's about it. I think thank you very much. Moving into Q&A, and I'll hand over the word to you.
Thank you so much, Robert, for the presentation. It was very insightful. And I think it was very good for everyone to understand the new updates to the GPSR. Now we'll move into the live Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to drop your questions in the webinar chat on Zoom. Perhaps we'll actually start with the pre-sent messages or pre-sent questions that might have come from some of the attendees already. So first question here is, does the GPSR apply to products sold through Amazon, Etsy, or other online marketplaces?
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, so I actually mentioned one thing during the presentation, which is called fulfillment service providers. And this means, well, basically Amazon, Etsy, these kind of online marketplaces. It says that if you don't have if a product does not have a economic operator in EU and it's sold through these channels, Amazon, Etsy, then Amazon and Etsy automatically becomes the economic operator in the EU, meaning that, well, they don't want that. And GPSR definitely apply to these products. So yes, to be able to sell through to Amazon and EU, you'd need to have these this all in place, basically.
Wonderful, great. Next question. Will failure to comply with the GPSR result in my products being blocked or delisted from EU platforms?
It may do that, yes. I don't know if they would look, for instance, for risk analysis. My guess is not. It's an internal risk analysis of the product. So basically Amazon or Etsy or whatever does not have this, well, they don't have authority to ask for that, basically. But what they can do is that they can block a product that does not have a EU economic operator listed on that product. So I've seen that already, that Amazon, for instance, have this specific section where you need to add the information on who is the EU economic operator for this product.
Understood. Question here. You've already mentioned this in one of your earlier slides, but it might be good to reiterate this registrant in case they weren't attending. Are there any products exempt from the GPSR, or is it universal for all consumer goods? For example, food, beverages, and alcohol.
Yes, I'm picking up the actual regulation to read directly. And yes, there are exemptions. Food, beverages are exempt. Alcohol as well, counted as food, basically. But in addition to that, you have medicinal products. You have feed. You have, well, for animals, living plants and animals, animal byproducts, plant protection products, aircrafts, antiques, and even equipment on which consumers ride or travel. Yeah, so there are a few, yes.
Wonderful. The move on to the next one is what already checks for the GPSR compliance and how will they stop my shipments?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so there are a few things here. First, the first thing that may happen, you say stop shipment. Well, customs is the first thing that comes into mind. A shipment comes into customs. Customs check for the obvious misses, right? So they would look for labeling incompliances, maybe some apparent other things that they may see. Definitely, you know, if you have electronics and all that, they would look for like lead or so in soldering and things like that. But that's already in place. So this specific one is for GPSR compliance. So you would have the customs that would do this check, and then if they see that, well, it's apparent that the labeling is not correct, then they may reach out to the Consumer Protection Agency in that country to ask them to look at the product as well. And you know, jointly they may decide to stop shipments, and they may decide to do you know, you need to send it back to original the origin country, or destroy the shipment entirely. So it really depends on the gravity of the incompliance and you know, what happens there.
So in short, the customs is the authority that we're checking for the GPSR compliance.
Yeah, so you have okay, so the first, when it comes into the EU, that would be the customs that would do the first check.
First check.
They are the gatekeepers, so they would check that. But then you also have a product that's already on the market. For instance, that sunshare I showed you, that's on the market. So that's not customs. That would be the Consumer Protection Agency that have seen this risky product on the market and issued that recall. So it depends on, you know, where in the life cycle it is, and if it's in the market or if it's going into the market.
Understood. Okay, great. So Arling's first question there is, we are a Norwegian brand, so can we put our contact info, so Norway, as EU representative?
Good question. And you have other other countries similar. For instance, Switzerland and you know, those that are not actually a member state, but still in the EU. The answer is yes, due to the trade agreement between the EU and Norway. So yes, that is possible for this specific country. Yeah.
And then we have Eiling's second question. Do we need a local representation for each EU country we sell in, or is it just one contact point? Is that enough?
Also a good question. Okay, so for GPSR, it's one. So you have one representative for the entire EU, but unfortunately, there are other areas to this that may affect you as well. We haven't talked about that today, but there is something called extended producer responsibility. This is for packaging and electronics and batteries. And for these specific legislation, you will need a local representative to each member state that you sell these products to. But that's a completely different topic, and it requires a separate webinar just for that.
Well, we're glad to have you on again, Robert. That's not a problem.
All right, perfect.
We have a quick question. Actually, let's continue Eiling's questions since she's listed them out. Alejandro will come to yours after Eiling's third question. So third question goes, where should I put the contact information on parts that can be removed from the product? So for example, packaging, or must it be on a permanent part of the product itself?
It can be either or, and it can also be also. The rules are that, well, what it says is that you should place it on the product, but if it's not possible for whatever reason, it can be placed on the packaging or even in a document that is provided with the product. I would advise to add it on the product and only in specific cases. No, I will add it only to the packaging. If you add it to packaging, I would also advise it to add also to the use instruction that it's following with the product. So as many places as you can. The thing is that if you, for instance, if you only place it on the product, you risk that in customs, for instance, that they would need to open up the packaging. And if you place it on the product, then you are likely safe in that aspect. So over clarity.
Yeah.
As clear as possible.
Good. I agree. You can never be too safe.
Yeah.
Let's go to Alejandro's question now. So Alejandro asks, does GPSR apply to me if we do not sell directly to final consumers? We sell our products to other companies that assemble it to the final product and sell to the market. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so as I understand it, you don't sell a complete product. You sell a part that is assembled into a product, and then that product is a consumer product. I would say that it's likely that it does not apply because you don't, as you said, you don't sell it to a final consumer. It's not a complete product. I would still advise to do a risk analysis on that, but I would also say that it's not applicable. You don't need to do all these labeling and all that in the same way because it's not a complete product that you place on the market. You are selling it B2B to another company that places on the market as a product. So no, let's say.
Right. We have a question here. let me see, from, I don't want to pronounce this wrong. I think it's Eloina.
Evelina.
Iwilina. Yeah. Hopefully I got that right. I'll read her question or his question. We are a UK manufacturer. We have information of someone in France on all our products, including their www dots. Is this sufficient to cover the regulation? What type of contracts we should have with this company from France to be officially our representative? Also, sometimes we produce our customers, so are they considered as responsible operators? We need labeling with their details and www dots, and this is enough to cover regulation. Thank you.
Okay. A few questions in one, I think. The first one, okay, yes, you do have someone in France, and they could potentially be your authorized representative. You do need to have an AR mandate, a mandate agreement that specifically lists what kind of task you pick up as the authorized representative. So that is what you need to draft. There, if you would Google, you would probably find something that is possible to use, or at least get some inspiration from. Then the other part, sometimes we produce for customers, so are they considered as responsible operators? My guess here is that you sell as you are a producer, not a manufacturer in this case. There's a distinction here. So a producer and a manufacturer. Manufacturer is a legal term. So it's the economic operator that actually picks up the task as a manufacturer and promises that this product is compliant with all the rules and picks up that responsibility up. Whereas the producer can be any company that produces for the manufacturer. So in this case, I think that you would be the producer that produces a product based on drawings or whatever from the manufacturer. I would say that then, labeling with their details and their www would be enough then, I think, or at least, yeah, plausible in that is enough.
Yeah. Okay, great. Then while we wait for any follow-up questions or from other participants live, we've got another question that came in beforehand. Is, as a manufacturer, do I need GPSR compliance even if I sell through a buyer or agent? I assume this question is actually quite similar to some of the questions live, but maybe I'll let you run that one, Roberth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so you are the manufacturer, legally the manufacturer, meaning that you need to pick up this responsibility. So you need to make sure that the project is compliant with GPSR.
Yeah, wonderful. And the last question here I have prior to the webinar is, who is legally responsible for compliance? Me, the factory, or my EU importer / distributor? So actually somewhat of a similar question, I think.
It's also, yeah. So again, I think there is it's important to understand the terms here. So each product needs to have every product has a manufacturer and a legal manufacturer. That's like the only thing that is always there. If the manufacturer is based in the EU, then that's basically the only economic operator that is needed for that product. If you sell within the EU to another a distributor that sells to the market, then the distributor is they picks up the roles of a distributor. In an importer, well, if you're as a manufacturer is based outside of EU and then sell to someone in the EU, then that someone becomes the legal importer. So there are tasks that are laid on each actor in the supply chain. The manufacturer has the main legal responsibility for the compliance. The importer has the legal responsibility to ensure that the products are compliant, as in, that the manufacturer has done their job. They need to check the labeling. They need to check that, can I get the test reports? Can I get access to the risk assessment? These kind of things. So these are all tasks that are laid on these actors. And this is also one of the reasons why also the role of an authorized representative is important, because if you have, as a manufacturer based outside the EU, you have, let's say you have 100 importers in the EU, then you need to be prepared to share your technical documentation to each of these importers, because that's their legal obligation to be able to answer up to authorities. However, if you sign up with an authorized representative, you only need to share this information to that authorized representative, because they are the legal contact for the market surveillance authorities. So that's kind of the way these kind of economic operating
Terminology.
things work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally understand. I understand why it can get really complex as well, because I think some of these terminologies and roles shift depending on which market the product's coming from and where the market's actually being sold.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Eiling has another question here, is where can I find information on what product category requires a local contact detail? So for example, one contact per EU country.
Okay. Well, then you have, it depends on what kind of product you have. If you have an electronic product that falls, it's the same scope of ROHS, ROHS, and if your product falls under ROHS, then your product also falls under WEEE. So WEEE requires you to have a local contact in each country that you sell to. The second is packaging and packaging waste. These are basically for all the whenever you have a packaging, then it applies. But here's a bit where it becomes a bit complicated. It also depends on where you buy the actual packaging from, and how it's supplied within the EU. So that's kind of hard to say. And then the final thing is batteries. Where you sell batteries that are imported from another EU member state, then you would need to from the outside of the EU, then you would need to you're an importer, you need to register in that country that you sell to, and also to the other countries that you sell to. If this battery manufacturer is actually based in the same country as you, then it's likely that they've already done this registration. So it's only you only register a product once, but it also depends on if your supplier has already registered this or so. So it is a bit complicated.
Yeah, because I think you and I have both read Eiling's second part of the question.
Yeah.
Talking about battery heated clothing. It sounds like there's a lot of I guess relatable, moving parts engaging in their final product. And where that's coming from different places, some of that contact detail could get quite that information get quite substantial, I think.
Yeah. For her, well, in this case, battery regulation. heated, I'd say electronics, so WEEE, packaging. You would likely put this in a box, right, and send it to consumers. All three.
Mm. Okay. Hopefully that answers everyone's questions. If anyone has any other live questions, feel free to send through in the group chat, or sorry, in the webinar chat. If you have any other questions that might come up to you later on after this webinar, feel free to also email through to Robert's email. We'll share that as well in our email through to all the registrants once we share the playback recording. So everyone will have a chance to actually contact Roberth or HQTS ourselves for some additional information related to, for us, will be quality assurance. And for Roberth, it would be GPSR and other compliances moving into the EU markets. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And I want to thank Roberth again, a very special thank you. You've been fantastic.
Thanks.
A wealth of knowledge and information you've shared with us. So thank you so much, Roberth. And I hope you enjoyed sharing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Okay. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we'll catch you at our next webinar. Any questions, feel free to email us in again, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye, everyone.